Can changing just a few foods of what you eat lower your blood pressure? I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome back to another Reacts video. I was sent this video from the Talking with Docs YouTube channel, and I've looked at Talking with Docs before. There are two orthopedic surgeons who are in practice, and they are members of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, and they address lots of different topics, including blood pressure, even though they're orthopedic surgeons. So let's see what they have to say.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Talking with Docs. I'm Dr. Brad Weenie.
And I'm Dr. Paul Zalzal.
Okay, today, Paul, really important episode. We're going to talk about high blood pressure, which we've talked about in the past.
Stop, drop, and roll, because as the kids say, this topic is
hot.
No. The kids
On fire.
It's on fire. They don't say on fire. They just say fire. This topic is fire. It's lit.
This topic is fire.
My grandparents say hot.
Wow. Okay, I feel weird now.
Look, we had the chance to be the goat. Now we look sheepish.
Sheepish. So what we're going to tell you is, actually it's going to be a 2-video series. So the first video, we're going to talk about the 2 things that you can actually eat that have the highest chance of reducing your blood pressure, that have good scientific evidence for them. In the second video, we have like 18 things that you can add to your diet that are going to make it better.
And we have a really good video on blood pressure.
With Dr. Heffernan.
With Dr. Heffernan. He talks a lot about pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
And so these are sort of alternatives to pharmaceuticals that you can try to lower your blood pressure with good evidence, as you said. We're kind of like the folk singers of health here.
Kind of.
Right? Me with my banjo of fun facts, and you with your tambourine of tasty pharmaceutical alternatives.
Yes. One caveat is that you should always do this under the supervision of your doctor, because there are certain things that we would recommend that if you have certain medical conditions like kidney disease, maybe you should actually avoid them rather than start taking more of them, because they could cause problems. Yeah. Specifically potassium.
Good point.
So, well, are you wondering, like me, what's in the gas in the machine behind them? Anyway, it's kind of funny.
Why do we get high blood pressure? So there's really 4 reasons that we get high blood pressure. It's our vessels are revolting a little bit against us.
Hypertension or high blood pressure can occur for a variety of reasons. One is basically dysfunction of your arteries. They get hard, they get stiff.
Right.
Okay, and they don't have the same compliance, and therefore the pressure goes up as the flow goes through them.
Agreed. Another one similar to that is that as we deposit plaque on the inside of our vessels, we've talked a lot about the cholesterol hypothesis and inflammation that leads to plaque formation. And as this reduces the amount of space inside of that vessel, it increases the pressure.
Put your thumb on the end of the hose and see what happens, right?
The water comes out faster.
Your pressure goes up.
Yeah.
And volume too. So if we've increased the volume of fluid in the vessels, in the circulatory system, and how that happens is salt intake.
Right, and some people are going to say, oh, salt intake doesn't matter for hypertension. That's actually not a true statement. So 50 to 60% of hypertension is actually salt sensitive. So not all of it. So you're going to find one guy who can eat as much salt as he wants. It's not going to affect his blood pressure, but most people are going to. So
if you eat salt, you're going to retain water. That's basically it, just through osmosis and those sort of grade 12 chemistry tricks.
Yes, so the top 2 things. So here we go.
Oh, hang on, before we get to that. I really like that description, that using a hose as a metaphor for your artery, and then when the heart beats, that's like the spigot being opened on the hose from, say it's from your house or your sink. So every time the heart beats, the pressure goes up, and that's the systolic pressure is the high number, systolic, the high number, and the diastolic is the low number if you measure your blood pressure, and that's the resting pressure inside the hose or the artery when the heart has relaxed. So you can think of this as a hose kind of system, the arteries, and I like that. And so high blood pressure can happen. He mentioned compliance, which really means distensibility, or the ability of the hose to open. And have you noticed there are these new flexible hoses that go way, how you buy them at one of the Home Depot or Lowe's or hardware stores, and they dispense a lot or have a big compliance like this. And then the older, more firmer hoses, that the plastic ones don't dispense or have as much compliance. That's all the same kind of idea. And so that as you get older, that in general, the arteries become less distensible or have less compliance, and that can lead to high blood pressure. So the other part of the system, the spigot, if the heart's beating too hard, you can make the blood pressure go up. That's part of the circulatory system. And I just want to add, it's not only salt that can make the blood pressure go up, and I was trained like these folks to be a little skeptical of salt for everybody. Salt is not an issue for blood pressure for everybody, but it is an issue. And I was taught as a young doctor in a weight loss program, I'll never forget that when the blood pressure was low on this individual, the nurse's aide said to me, "Doctor, go get a bouillon cube and mix it in hot water, stat." Stat means right away. So I come into the clinic and there's this person who doesn't really know where he is. Turns out his blood pressure is really low. He's on medicines, and if the medicines make the blood pressure too low, you can kind of lose sense of where you are, maybe even pass out. But so I went over in the microwave and heated up some water and mixed up the bouillon cube and gave it to this person whose blood pressure was low. Bouillon in general has about 800 to 1,000 milligrams of salt, of sodium. And so what I noticed in the next 15 minutes is this person's blood pressure went up. Giving salt was a treatment for low blood pressure. So no question, salt can raise the blood pressure. Now, on average, among studies, among mild hypertension, it's not going to affect everybody. But let me also add in that carbohydrates raise the blood pressure because they make you hold on to sodium. So because of this carbohydrate insulin effect, insulin signals to the kidneys to hold on to salt. And so if you're doing a low carb diet, you might notice if you do have carbs, you slip up, have carbs at a meal, that the next day your weight is up and you feel more puffy. That's the water weight that has been held onto your body because you had some carbohydrates. Not just salt, but let's add to the list of things that can raise the blood pressure, carbohydrates can. And this is why a lot of people notice their blood pressure getting better when they cut the carbohydrates out. And in my clinic at Duke, I routinely take away blood pressure medicine. I have people monitor their blood pressure at home, and as they lose weight and get healthier, their blood pressure comes down. I have to think that it's partially because of that volume effect that they're talking about. The more volume you have in the blood, the more pressure there is. But there may also be an effect on the distensibility or compliance of the artery as well. That's not really well worked out. But let's now back to the foods. Now that we have an idea of what high blood pressure is and the causes, what foods can lower it?
So these are simple things that you can try. You do have to try them typically for 3 to 6 months and on a daily basis. And it is worth a try, especially for someone who says, listen, I really don't want to take any pills, or maybe I don't have health care, maybe I can't afford the pills, or maybe I live in a country where I don't have access to pills. So this is why we're trying to help. This is the purpose of our channel. So the number one is beetroot juice and beets.
Bears, beets, Battlestar Galactica.
Little Office reference for those of you who watch The Office. So the thing about beets is that I think people either love them or hate them, because some people say they taste like dirt. They have like a weird consistency. Yeah. But when you look at a beet, you say, when it looks dark red like that, usually things have a lot of color like that are good for you. And this one is good for you because of the nitrates that are there and the effect that it has on endothelial relaxation and vasodilation. So if those vessels can relax the vessel itself, this reduces our pressure. And there's actually been a randomized control trial that showed if you drink 1 cup of beet juice every day, it actually can reduce your blood pressure by up to 10%.
Okay.
Significant amounts. So that's 10 to 15 millimeters in someone that's actually hypertensive. It did not necessarily show that in people that did not have high blood pressure, it's not going to make you low blood pressure. So it was effective for the group that already had the disease. So number one that you should consider is beets or beetroot juice.
All right, there you go. Number 2 coming at you, flaxseed.
Flaxseed. So this can be solid or can be ground.
Any way you like it, get that flaxseed in you to reduce your blood pressure if you're hypertensive.
Right, so flaxseed is very high in omega-3s. And there's again a randomized control trial that showed that 3 tablespoons a day, so actually not a very large volume, every day beyond 12 weeks showed that similar decrease of about 10%. So a lot of people are like, how am I going to get my flaxseed in? So you can put it in a smoothie, you can put it on your cereal, you can put it on yogurt. There's lots of different ways, but this is actually from the journal Hypertension in 2013. Good evidence to show. So those are 2 simple things that are actually affordable that have shown to reduce your blood pressure.
Get it in you.
Get it in you.
Of course, there are other ways. We're just talking about foods that can lower your blood pressure.
Well, so interesting. I like the focus on randomized controlled trials, and a few kind of cautionary tales, or you always have to consider the context of the randomized trial. I'm assuming the people were eating carbs. So in the context of eating carbs and those who already had hypertension, they were giving or manipulating a single food. Not having read the studies very carefully myself, and if there's just one study, that's going to be my fallback. I'm going to wait for the second study. Now, this might seem a little pompous, a little arrogant perhaps, but you want to wait for the replication, for the second study. And this is why if you're doing something new and you have a new breakthrough, you want someone else to replicate it really fast, because you might hear about some remarkable finding, but if no one else can find the same thing, then there's some reason, either some way you did the study that's not extrapolatable or generalizable. So I don't know the size of these randomized trials, but if there's just one study, I'm going to kind of halt and say, well, okay, if you want to add beet juice or flaxseed, there's some rationale because of the nitric oxide and the omega-3, but it sounds like you have to do it every day, maybe multiple times a day for 3 to 6 months to get this effect. Well, that might be something you want to do. And now looking at it through how many carbs through that lens, the beets are actually rather low in carbs. And on the teaching plan that I start people out on, they can have beet greens, but not beets themselves. But later on, you could introduce beets, or you might calculate the number of grams of carbohydrate in the serving of the beets or beet juice that you have. Flaxseed itself is going to be very low in carbs, and the amount that they're talking about I don't think is going to amount to any carbohydrate load that's going to stop nutritional ketosis. So I guess it's apples and oranges. I'm not sure what this would, if the findings would be the same if you weren't eating carbohydrates, and then having just one study, I want to see the second study. So, and that's another reason why you might want to wait till there's a meta-analysis of studies. A meta-analysis means a grouping of different studies, and make sure the meta-analysis is a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. And this might be one way to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, so that you're not inundated with so many studies. So kind of first, does it involve humans? No, well, I'm not going to, look at that one. It's interesting that those studies are usually done for other researchers to spread the news or to get more funding. So if these studies were done in humans, fantastic. And then you want to know, the sample size, if there was, the duration, the dose, if it's feasible, how many carbs are in the intervention if you're going to be doing a low-carb diet or use nutritional ketosis. So not quite sure if these two foods will lower your blood pressure in the context of a low-carb diet, but seems reasonable. And the way to monitor it would be home monitoring. And if you're not in sync with low-carb diets, if you're new to that, actually changing the dietary pattern changes your metabolism and also can lower the blood pressure independent of one certain kind of food. So in general, I'm kind of leery of proclamations that one food will do something for you. It's more the entire dietary pattern and what metabolism that your body is running on. If you're eating carbs and running on carbs, that's a different metabolism than if you're not eating carbs and you're running on fat. Hope that's helpful. If you like it, please like, subscribe so you don't miss out on further videos. And why not send this to a friend? It's a grassroots effort after all. If you don't have my top 10 tips on how to start keto right, please look in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.